everybody, and welcome back to the B1 podcast with Matt and Tommy. Canadian Grand Prix is in the bag. That's round 10, I think, if my brain serves me correctly. And, well, we don't have much to talk about today, do we, Tommy? Not a lot to go on.
Oh, thanks to the ending.
Really sort of just a teasing race. A race that was just on a knife's edge for a lot of it. Which way is it going to go? What strategies are playing out? And then, boom, McLaren's come together to give us an even bigger talking point. How are you feeling ahead of this one?
Yes, there's a lot to unpack here because, I kind of thought it was going to be a normal ending to the race, and then I would kind of go in about a particular subject, but I'm still going to go in on that. But we've also got some spicy McLaren stuff to talk about as well, because it finally happened, but it happened.
Do I see in the distance Tommy Rant coming over the hill?
Potentially.
Oh, don't say potentially. Don't you dare tease it just like the race and then not deliver. Exactly. Goodness gracious. All right, well, before we get into all of that, a quick shout out to our wonderful P1 Patreons who'll be getting extra chat at the end of this main race podcast, as well as lots of other amazing perks, including the Discord and also the ad-free listening to this podcast. Okay, here we go. My most memorable moment, the McLaren battle. Oh, don't you worry, everybody. We're getting straight into it. We're not one of those podcasts that go on and blah, 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 blah for 40 minutes and then go, right, let's talk about McLaren. No, we're here and we're going to discuss it because it was shocking. I can't believe it happened. Firstly, that we got a battle. And secondly, that they came together within about 3 corners of battling. You might have seen the social media clip that we put from our watch-along up at pretty much as soon as it had happened. But we were, firstly, really enjoying it. The first thing is, wow, Lando's actually caught and is on the back of Oscar, despite the fact Kimi Antonelli was giving Oscar some DRS. Along, and around Canada, that we'd just kind of accepted by this point of the race that no one can really overtake. But it then unfolded. It
did. Yeah, it's a crazy thing to think about that Antonelli kind of, or because it ended up being a 3-car fight with kind of Antonelli getting in there as well and looking like Piastri might even nick the podium from Antonelli, that we were also, part of me was going, oh, that's really annoying that you're dragging Oscar in, because then it kind of looked like there wasn't going to be a battle. But then there still managed to be one, and actually it made it even better because when they were going down the back straight together, they both had DRS, so it wasn't even a case where someone would easily breeze past. They both had DRS, they both kind of went for it, and, well, yeah, a big mistake from Lando, and it was brilliant up until then. It was great racing, it was respectful racing, but, Lando made the mistake and admitted to it.
It's interesting, isn't it, that we thought on paper Kimi giving Oscar DRS was going to not give us the battle that we wanted, when the reality was that Oscar getting too close to the Mercedes was actually causing him to lose time in other areas of the track, which allowed Lando to get close. Because, of course, Lando, with slightly fresher tyres, was still able to stay somewhat near Oscar. But as soon as Oscar rocked up to the back of the Mercedes, he was then struggling a little bit more, which opened up this battle. Let's get into the first question. P1 Patreon member Bush Pass 7. Was the Piastri-Norris incident a product of their lack of experience battling with each other? Ooh, I hadn't thought of it from that angle. I mean, battling can only be so different when you go between drivers. It's not like it's a complete unknown how Piastri would defend for Norris. I am more of the opinion that it was just a pure and honest, you have to say, because Lando owned up to it immediately, mistake. It's not a lack of experience from either side. We've seen plenty of examples of both drivers being able to pull off moves. We have obviously tapped into a little bit Lando's potentially, well, especially against Max Verstappen, lack of confidence when it is about going for a decisive move. And then this one, I mean, he was decisive. He decisively just went into a half car width gap and just committed.
Put himself into the wall.
Full throttle. But no, I wouldn't put it down to lack of experience battling with each other, because it's not as if Piastri is some wild donkey that Norris was unaware of. It wasn't a little jolt to the inside from Piastri either. It was just a pure misjudgment from Lando.
It was, yeah. You can't say that it was anything with lack of experience battling each other, because there is, in my mind, and probably Lando's as well, because he had admitted fault, 0% fault for Piastri. It was brilliant up until that moment. I'm amazed, and it's all hindsight, of course, that Lando didn't try to go to the outside because there wasn't a gap. And of course, yes, it would have been difficult to go around the outside, but of course that then gives you the inside going into the next corner. So it was probably worth a shot with the overspeed if he felt like he had to do it there, and it might be his only chance. But instead, yeah, he just went into a gap that wasn't there. You know, we spoke about the similarities of Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton back in Canada 2011 when we first saw it, but the reality of that was Jenson Button put Hamilton in the wall, whereas Oscar has not done anything wrong in this situation. He's defended the inside, and Lando's driven into a gap that wasn't there. So you can't really blame lack of experience. It's just a mistake from Lando.
Yeah, it's a similar part of the track, those two incidents, but as you say, Jenson had left the door open, Hamilton got his front right alongside Jenson Button's left rear, and then Jenson just went, goodbye, you're going into the wall now. Whereas, as you say, Oscar was always ahead, and it was, a bizarre incident. And this is what pressure, moments of deciding within 0.2 of a second, do I go left or right? In hindsight, of course, you would say go to the outside, but I think just in general, it's such a risky move to put on your teammate. I know he's your championship rival, but he's also your teammate, to try that kind of thing.
So it's so disappointing as well, because we've been pleading Lando, like you said, about with Max Verstappen, just go for it. And maybe that was in his head that, you know, I was saying it during the watch along when they were fighting. I was like, Lando, you have to start kind of making Piastri think twice about you and be worried about you, basically. But instead, he's come off it losing more points, than he would if they'd just finished first and second. So, it's a big moment in the season for sure.
Certainly is. Next question, P1 Petro member Motorsport Mike. Are you surprised Norris put his hands up? Any other driver would be like, he turned in on me. What's he doing? I think he had to. I think he had to say, my bad, because I can't see a world where you can even stretch to say that was Oscar's fault.
It's not even a 90-10%.
No, there is nothing where you go, oh, actually, yeah, Lando did have his front right to Oscar's left rear. There wasn't any of that. It was just a pure misjudgment, as we say. So, and I think Lando, of course, literally was on the team radio immediately. It wasn't even like he had to cool down after he got out of the car. He knew immediately that he had made that mistake. So there's no other route for him to take. If he goes down the route of he turned in on me, this, that, and the other, he would get more flack. He would get more criticism and negativity if he goes down that route than just being honest and putting his hands up. So he did the right decision, because that was what happened.
And it's not even just about the negativity of social media, like how you'd handle it with McLaren, then going in when it's so clearly his fault and Oscar's got no blame on him, to then it become like a war of words and stuff. So in a weird way for McLaren, it's a kind of, in a weird way, if they're going to crash, it's kind of lucky on McLaren. It's obviously for the drama of the championship and us wanting a bit more spice, it's not as exciting, but it's in a weird way good for McLaren that it was just 100% one driver's fault, that they could immediately throw their hands up in the air, and then, Oscar can be told, which you could see basically from like PR basically saying Lando's admitted to it, all this kind of stuff, so he doesn't have to then go into a press conference and go, oh my god, what's he playing at, blah blah blah, and they could just apologise to each other and move on. So from McLaren's side, it probably is good for them. So yeah, Lando didn't really have any other option.
It's not just that, it is the absolute, if they're going to come together, it's the absolute perfect scenario to be able to move on from, because not only was it Lando 100% his fault, but he was also the one that didn't finish. if it had been Oscar that didn't finish, Lando did, and Lando
Very
was like,
true.
my
And
hands
it's
up,
controversial.
so sorry. But Oscar's lost points. There's going to be a rift there. But
well, like when Nico Rosberg had that incident with Hamilton where he gave him a puncture, and it was and then he kind of, it doesn't matter if if Lando had given Oscar a puncture to come out of the race and Lando had finished with like just a missing front wing and grabbed some points, then there would be a bit of a storm, wouldn't there?
Exactly. I did see as well, just as we were starting to record, that Lando had been summoned to the stewards for the incident with Oscar, but I'm assuming
penalty
because
points,
the team
maybe?
representative would be McLaren, and they'd go, it's a racing incident, and therefore I don't think there would be, because
like the
it's kind of a
Alpines,
weird thing. Yeah,
but would he get penalty points for what's something that's a crash that's his fault?
I'm not sure if it's, to be honest, I don't think penalty points is something that's of concern
That's
for
just
Lando
vibes, isn't
anyway.
it?
But,
No, and they just
we'll see.
That
We'll see how that one unfolds. But yeah, I think it will just be deemed as a racing incident because the team representatives are from the same team, and they will say, yes, it was a racing incident.
Can we move on? Yeah.
Speaking of, next question, P1 Patreon member M. Lackin. Will McLaren stop letting the drivers fight and step in with team orders now they have lost a chunk of points? No, because they've committed to... they've even said, like Zach Brown has literally said, they will come together, but this is the McLaren way. We let them fight. They're two number one drivers, and Nico Rosberg, I think, said after the race, and I completely echo his thoughts of thank you, McLaren, for allowing this to happen and for these two to fight. Of course, from a championship winning perspective, it gives Max obviously a little bit more of a window in after the misery that was Spain for him. But I don't think McLaren change because they have committed to this way of thinking. I believe that they may have to revisit it if in the next 3 Grand Prix, every single time Oscar and Lando now come together, then they might have to do something. Because as much as we say, they're only focused on the constructors, they don't care about the drivers, they want to win both, but in a way that is probably the least likely by letting the two fight all the time. Yeah,
I think they're, at the moment at least, and this kind of comes on to the next question, but at the moment at least, they've wrapped up the Constructors' Championship, that's no doubt, and it does very much feel like the pace that they've had all year is going to be between the two McLaren drivers. So not as extreme as Mercedes back in kind of 2014, 15, 16 when they went into every single race. You knew they'd get pole and you knew they'd win. But McLaren are still very dominant, so they have that luxury that they can afford to still go into this and it's not affected too much. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, the fact that Oscar is the one that's come out better for it, so it's not kind of affected someone, the person that crashed is like ruined his own race and not his teammates. What I do hope is that this doesn't put Lando off going for it again, because, and I know he's a driver that can get in his own head, and I hope that when another opportunity comes up, he doesn't maybe think twice about going for the move, because if he wants to win this championship, you're going to have to race your teammate, and we're going to have that kind of battle again and race them hard and stuff. So yeah, I hope that is the case, and I'm sure McLaren will let them fight, because at the moment they've got a very, very healthy lead in both championships.
Indeed they do. Oscar gaining points, obviously, in terms of his actual championship lead to P2. But yeah, we will see. And I hope so as well. I hope Lando does still go for moves. And the fact that he is now further behind Oscar means he needs to go for these moves even more yeah. to gain some of these points back. So like, he'll review it. He'll reflect on it. I'm sure he will kick himself for days now about how that went down, but he just needs to bounce back for Austria.
But don't do it
he had a collision there as well. So yeah, obviously with Max, if you remember, but it was the right. The only positive from this is that he was willing to go for it. The other stuff needed to be improved, and I think it's clear to see that he made the wrong choice there.
He did everything. Actually, just going on to that, he did everything right up until the really, really wrong part. And I'm not trying to like defend what he did, but the move into the hairpin was actually the kind of best way to kind of get Piastri on the back foot, because it was looking really hard to get DRS and go for it. So we had to do a surprise move that, someone like Max would have done as well, like going into that. Then they were side by side, and actually he did well, even though Oscar Piastri braked a lot later. He did well to basically just square off the corner perfectly so he could get an amazing run, but then he just picked the wrong side. I'd have loved to have seen what would have happened in an alternate reality if he just tried the outside. And
you watch the onboard, and I think it's pretty clear to see that if he'd committed to the outside line, he would have been half a car length ahead going into turn one at least. So,
and then you have the inside to the next corner. So
yeah, I feel like
shot.
Yeah, it was.
And I'm sure he's thinking the very same thing right now.
Indeed he is. Question from P1 Patreon member Anastasia W. Did the track not suit McLaren, or was it the upgrade that didn't work with the car? I'd love to be able to tell you the whole lowdown here. Of course, there's plenty of variables, isn't there? There's the fact that Piastri went a different route to Norris this weekend in terms of the suspension. You also have the fact that, don't forget, the technical directive came in not that long ago. And yes, Spain, they were amazing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it will work throughout. I think Anthony Davidson was saying, like, we need more than just one race to be able to assess if McLaren have been pegged back at all. And it was surprising to see just how much they were struggling. I think as well, when you look back to Monaco, of course, Piastri struggled a little bit more than Norris did. With the softer set of tyres. Perhaps there's an element there with the McLaren that doesn't work as well, but then Lando won Monaco. But Monaco is such a unique thing in itself that perhaps it is more about the variable of the tyres coming in that's allowing other teams a sniff. It's hard to pinpoint right now, but it was interesting to see that Piastri and Norris had gone a different route into this weekend.
What a crazy situation as well that we got the McLaren fight and it was a battle for fourth. Like what a mad thing that, you know, we're waiting for that battle for them to basically be 1-2 and fighting for a win, and it was over fourth. And
we were getting so excited, like it was for the lead.
Well, just because we've been so desperate to see it, and you know that those two are the championship fight. Realistically, it's looking like it is between those two. And
that would have been such a bigger incident had it been for P1 and P2 over P4 and P5. Like, that's a 25-point swing as opposed to a 12.
But in terms of, like, did the track not suit McLaren, they were definitely slower than normal, but they still definitely could have won the race had they qualified better. Welcome to Formula One in 2025, and I'll get onto that next. But I don't necessarily think the upgrade didn't work because Lando had it and he looked like the quicker driver, but it all went wrong for Lando in qualifying that put him on the back foot because, had he qualified better, of course it's if, buts and maybes, but we've seen the evidence this year that you do qualify and a lot of the time you get into turn one first, you're going to win. So I'd be amazed if this continues. I think Austria, there's a chance again that we could see McLaren a bit more in the pack, but when we get to your Silverstones and high-speed circuits like that, I'd be amazed if we're not going to see McLaren 1-2s again.
Yeah, we did see the pace, didn't we, today? In moments from McLaren. Lando was the fastest car on track in that final stint. Of course, he did have a slight advantage with the tyre life, but even when Lando was running out in front, you could see that there was some really good pace there. But then even Charles Leclerc, he could have got pole. He had a fastest first sector. God knows what his race would have looked like. He could have easily finished on the podium had qualifying been different. So it was the fact that, of course, it's a shorter track as well. There's going to be smaller margins between the teams over the course of a lap. And yeah, it was just one that was. I found the race quite fascinating. We didn't know which way it was going to go for a very long time. We didn't know if the Lando and Charles strategy was actually going to pay off, whether we would get a poorly timed VSC or safety car. So it's hard to judge just how much McLaren was or wasn't on the pace, just purely because they were just constantly in the pack and they weren't leading from the front, apart from obviously Lando with those older hard tyres. Tommy, let's go to your most memorable moment, please. So
my most memorable moment is not a good one. I'll get onto talking about a certain guy in P3 who I was very happy about. But for my most memorable moment, unfortunately, it is a bad one, and that bad one is dirty air. because, oh my word, I am sick of this now. And I went into this season thinking, why are they changing the rules? Because we've finally got, quite close and things like that, and we may well go into 2026 and someone be clear of the pack, and maybe this will age badly, but I will not miss this set of regulations, and because these cars are an absolute joke with the dirty air now. We've had 9 out of the 10 races where the person into turn 1 has won the race. And I know there was intrigue from strategy, and Pirelli are trying their best to give different strategies and trying to throw in a 2-stop. But, we got the same 4 cars that went into turn 1 in that order finish the race, even despite all those people pitting on different strategies and the tyres wearing out and things like that. It is just so hard to pass, and it is so depressing after the first 3 laps watching everyone just go, okay, everyone separate out now by 1.5 seconds, so you can, because you literally cannot pass. And every circuit is becoming Monaco, and it's very irritating. I won't miss these cars personally. When you look back it's depressing to look back to think that this regulation was all about overtaking and making it closer and easier to follow. And I think this is way worse now than the end of the last regulations that we saw in 2021, with how cars can pass and follow each other.
Wow. Tommy's popped off, and I enjoy it. I don't enjoy the fact of, dirty air existing. In terms of the gaps, the Canadian Grand Prix wasn't the worst for dirty air. We've seen 3-4 seconds be the gaps that some drivers have had in terms of a train. Whereas this one, it was 1.5 seconds. They were following reasonably closely and baiting us into thinking that there might be moves. But it still, at the end of the day, has the same result, which is hardly any overtakes unless there is a driver that has much fresher tyres or a much faster car coming through. Now, Liam Lawson was providing all kinds of train action.
He could do a Monaco again, pretty much, couldn't he?
Yeah, it is sad to see, and I agree that I am excited for what next year has to bring, as much as all of the negative sentiments from some drivers and the simulations that they've done is that the car's going to be horrendous. I'm sure they will figure that out to a degree, at least. And
I'd rather that than this if they can pass each other on the straights.
Oh, well, exactly. They could go 100 miles an hour, and as long as they can pass, I'm all in. You look back to the start of 2022 where we thought Formula One was fixed. We thought Formula One had finally figured out overtaking and the ground effect coming in. Yes,
that first race with Charles
Saudi
and Max
and Charles at Saudi was just so brilliant to watch. But the problem is you then give teams time to figure out how to make their cars faster
yeah.
and also how to make their cars more draggy and more affecting the air. Like, it is literally a benefit for a team to make the air that they give off their car to be like essentially Mario Kart banana peels. And yeah, sadly, we've got to the end of the regulations. Yes, it's close, and Saturdays are amazing, and I did quite enjoy the race at times today, just purely because we didn't know which way it was going to go. But no, not enough of that wheel-to-wheel glorious action that we all live for. Question from P1 Patreon member Tardy Tomato. More impressive Kimi achievement so far, sprint pole or Canada podium? Sprint pole, I think, was more impressive as I mean, they're both incredibly impressive. I think the sprint pole was like so out of nowhere that we were like, what has just happened? But I think, okay, this is more of like I'm thinking more of like an emotional reaction. I think I was more emotionally reacting to the sprint pole, but in terms of the most impressive thing that Kimi has done, I think the Canada podium was such a level-headed drive. He was so quick as well. He was not far off George Russell, who was literally the race winner. In third, he held off both McLarens behind him as a rookie, 10 races into his career. It was It was a phenomenal job from Kimi. He did not luck into that. There was no virtual safety car to put him in that position. He pulled off an amazing move on Piastri into turn 1, which essentially locked him into P3. I think both you and I, Tommy, and a lot of people watching probably thought, Kimi's got Oscar at the start. Oscar will get him back at some point. We thought Oscar was being in championship head mode, where he was like, let's not do anything silly with a rookie. And it turned out that he'd never get Kimi back after that.
No. And Kimi was actually more challenging Max Verstappen than he was under pressure from Piastri from the start of the race, at least. I think it's definitely this podium in Canada, because the sprint pole was incredible. He had a lot of qualifying pace around Miami, but he did slip back in the race and kind of struggled.
It's a sprint pole, just the singular moment of sprint pole. We're not talking about the what happened afterwards.
Yeah, of course, but true. But to deliver a race, that is what's the most difficult thing in Formula One,
it's a hard
and it's so different to something like Formula 2, where they don't have these really long races. The tyres are so different from having to manage them, and actually that race where the tyres were degrading quite a lot had rookie struggles written all over it. And actually, the fact that Kimi Antonelli was that close to George is the most impressive thing about it. In qualifying, he was, I think, concerningly quite far away from George, and the P4 actually flattered him quite a lot. But it's so impressive that he was actually close to him in the race. Regardless of the safety car, those top 5 were really close together, and you can say, George was managing, blah, 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 but Kimi was there. It wasn't like he got a podium, but he was 40 seconds behind Russell because they had the best car this weekend. He was close. It was a brilliant performance from Kimi.
Yeah, and you think as well, we're looking at what Oscar Piastri is, or becoming, in his 3rd season. I think Kimi Antonelli being that close to George Russell at any point during his rookie season is something that should excite Toto Wolff very much, and I think it certainly does.
I think,
well done.
I think with Kimi, people have to remember, and I'm not saying that what other rookies are doing is not impressive, but what Kimi, obviously, there's still a lot for him to show, I think, and I wouldn't put him as rookie of the year so far. Maybe we get to the end of the season and that is the case, but people, I think, need to remember that his teammate is George Russell, who's one of the best drivers in Formula One, and that's what's making it so difficult for him. So the fact that he's now had a race where he's on his pace is very exciting, and he's hoping that he can do that again, because you never know. He's definitely got kind of the racecraft and the confidence and stuff. Hope it kickstarts something.
And the weight he's carrying as well, driving for Mercedes and taking Lewis Hamilton's shoes. He's literally going into the cockpit of where Hamilton once sat. So that is definitely something that he has to carry compared to the other rookies. He's not rookie of the season so far, but he's definitely nudged himself up towards that spot if he keeps up with these kind of performances.
Kimi Antonelli would get a Grand Prix podium before Lewis Hamilton this season. That is quite something.
That is wild, actually. That is definitely not something I would have put in my predictions, but that's clear because I never get any of my predictions right. P1 Patreon member Luca Cuzzy. With George only 40 points behind Lando, if Merck finds performance, is he still in it? Okay, I think we need to relax on the Russell-Mercedes hype train. I still firmly believe that McLaren have the fastest car over the course of not just the season we've seen, but for the rest of the season as well. If we get to Austria and Merck are like, I see those hot temperatures and I don't care. I don't care anymore. We're all Gucci. We're fighting at the front. Then perhaps, because Russell is having an amazing season. You cannot deny that. And George is absolutely running with a huge amount of momentum. He just doesn't have the car week in, week out. Similar to Max Verstappen at Red Bull, it has to be said, where I cannot, in my brain right now, fathom anyone other than either Oscar Piastri, more likely at the moment, or Lando Norris winning this world championship. But that's not to take anything away from George. He is maximising almost every single weekend, spawning in P3s, winning this weekend. He's doing a phenomenal job.
He is. I mean, you say, is he still in it because he's 40 points behind Lando? It doesn't matter because he's 62 points behind Piastri, who's the championship leader. And I can't see him catching 62 points on Piastri to win the championship. That would be an absolute monumental comeback and would rely on McLaren falling off a cliff a bit. And I don't see that personally. Or just
having two number one drivers battle every single week.
Or them crashing every single week. Yeah, exactly. I'd be amazed, obviously. You look at Max, who's 19 points ahead of George, and still going back to Spain, thinking had he had those extra points without what he did in Spain, he'd be pretty close to Lando now, actually. And maybe it would feel a bit more like a very slim outside chance, but not certainly not saying it's done and you never know in Formula One. But Oscar Piastri is going to take some beating now. To say that he's had his poorest weekend and still come out extending his championship lead, that is what world champions do. And we've said that about so many world champions before. It's not about dominating when you've got a great car underneath you, like, although that is part of it. It's those weekends where things aren't going right. You know, he looked poor in practice. He hit the wall. The wall of champions, is that a sign? And yeah, he's done amazingly well to basically extend his championship lead after all that.
He really has. Yeah, he's definitely going to be a difficult one to beat, especially if his main competitor is Lando, and Lando, of course, making this big mistake this weekend. It's a big swing of points. Yeah, I mean, it's not completely out the realms of possibility that Russell beats Lando in the championship, maybe, or Max. But to get all the way to Lando is going to be one hell of a task. But hey, if he does, it means we've had some very spicy races between now and the end of the season. So I'm here for it. Oh no, now we head to the next question from P1 Patreon member Captain Obs 3420. When will Ferrari start listening to Leclerc? I think I want to reshape this question into when will Leclerc just do what he wants to do?
When will Leclerc stop listening to Ferrari?
Yeah, I will obviously back Charles to the ends of the earth. But I also felt like, and I have felt many times, to be fair, Charles has been on the right track. You know, as in the right strategy call that he might be trying to go for, or whatever. I felt a lot of times Charles has been on, had the right thinking, and then peeled into the pits and said, why have we done this? Why have you put me on this tyre? Whatever it might be. We've seen, the greats, the Hamiltons, the Verstappens override not team orders, but team strategy.
Decisions, yeah.
So many times. We've seen Sainz do it. We've seen a lot of drivers get great results by ignoring their team. And sadly, Ferrari, I don't know what they were doing today. I don't have a clue, because they either pit Charles and go on the aggressive on the mediums, or they go with the one stop, which I think is what Charles was trying to go for, which was another route, or they just commit to staying out till lap 69, nice, and then pit and hope for a virtual safety car or a safety car. Like, you have to commit to something. But instead, they left him out, I think, to lap 52. He came out the pits on fresh mediums, and he was 12 seconds or whatever it was behind Lando, maybe 10. And there's no way he's going to catch that in 12 laps. So then I think, well, my understanding would be that Charles has just thought, right, let me try and keep these mediums in somewhat of a good window in case there is a safety car at the end, because he didn't even catch up to them. Like, he didn't even, I don't think he even gained any time.
I think he lost time, yeah.
Now, that might be complete delirium, and actually was just really slow on the fresh mediums, but my logic is saying that he wasn't slower than Lando, because he wasn't slower than Lando for most of the race up until that point. So it was frustrating. It was really frustrating to listen to that, because I felt like a podium could have been on the cards. But it just didn't go that way.
I think the stupid thing about it is that there was an absolute chasm between the top runners and the midfielders. You saw it pretty much on lap 1 opened up, and obviously Lewis Hamilton had his own problems for the damage that he had, which meant that he was further back. So there was a massive gap to slot into. So you do something really risky, you're finishing 5th, or you do what Ferrari did and finish 5th. But you do something really risky and it goes badly, you're finishing 5th, but you might get a 2nd or a 3rd, maybe, or a 4th, and get a better result. And it is painful to watch Charles Leclerc in his 7th season with Ferrari still arguing with them like he doesn't trust them. Like Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes, that relationship that he had with Bono, it didn't happen overnight, but it grew over years and years. Same with Verstappen and GP, that you kind of grow that bond. So for Leclerc to still be at the same team for 7 years and still basically them never seeming to agree with each other is just shock. Don't you dare tell me that there's been a penalty. I've just seen your eyes light up. No.
No, relax,
okay,
relax.
Don't you dare tell me that.
But there has been a protest lodged by Oracle Red Bull Racing
about George
against
Russell
the
brake
driver
testing.
of car 63.
Right, let's talk about this because I wanted to talk about it.
Okay, well, there you go. So obviously that's for the braking excessively under the safety car. Let's talk about it, Tommy, because I think it might be about to kick off.
Yeah, I was very intrigued by that incident personally. It got kind of brushed under the rug a bit, didn't it? And to be fair, like they went into the cool down room, didn't they, as well? And they didn't speak about it, or George and Max shook hands and stuff. But maybe this is the Max Verstappen fanboy kicking in here. But you reverse those roles, and Max Verstappen slams the brakes on to basically try and get another driver punished. Everyone would be calling for that extra penalty point for him to get him banned. So George Russell, I don't know if I think it's a penalty or not. Maybe it's not, but it's also incredibly risky to do something silly just to kind of get a driver you don't like banned, or a bit of gamesmanship for no reason. And there's no doubt in my mind that you switch those two drivers around, this incident would have blown up and people would be talking about it so much that why has he just slammed the brakes on? Because I know Max was alongside him, but if he'd gone into the back of him, George would have got a penalty because he's just hit the brakes down the straight. So how does that pan out? I'm not saying it's like, yes, you'd give George a penalty. I'm more thinking, why on earth did he do it? Because it's a massive risk.
Yeah,
what's it? You're about to win the race. You've got the win guaranteed in the bag, and if I don't think this penalty will go anywhere personally. But
no,
why risk it? It's a bit of a silly thing to do.
It opens a slim opportunity for the stewards to deem that this was dangerous driving, because of course there are rules in place, like you can't be further than 10 car lengths, I think it is, behind the safety car. It didn't specify in that document what exactly Red Bull are protesting, whether it's the braking, the dangerous drive, whatever. But yeah, it was a strange one. I'm sure from George's cockpit, it's a case of, oh yeah, I'm just going to brake a bit harder, warm up the brakes, warm up the tires. Doesn't matter. But the thing is, I don't know. Do they really have any sort of excuse for doing that? Because it's quite clear that the race is not going to get underway anyway, and Russell has braked unnecessarily hard.
And can I just say, I'm just watching this replay right now. He looks in his right mirror, slams the brakes on, and within a millisecond presses the radio button, which will be him saying, he's overtaken me, penalty. There's no way that's not him trying his luck to get a race ban for Max. It's cheeky. It's very cheeky. It's risky. It's incredibly risky.
I personally don't think anything comes of this. But it is big that Red Bull have literally protested George winning this race.
Yeah.
So that in itself is something we'll have to keep an eye on.
Can you imagine if he lost the win for just trying to get Max banned?
And then
that
you
would
will
be
even more unbearable about the fact of Spain and how that unfolded, because he'll be even closer because Max will win the race.
But yeah, it would also just it dares not think about for George Russell.
Kimi Antonelli P2 though. Got to, maybe
it's a crazy situation.
Kimi wins. Thoughts?
Crazy.
Okay, next question. People on Patreon remember PGO Stick 1. When will Hulk get a car that doesn't suck? I mean, Hulk has had many cars that don't suck.
Not really good ones, but yeah, not ones of...
Not championship
bad
winning
cars.
but they don't suck. They were, he's, as I've said, probably for his entire career, he is a phenomenal midfielder. Like, he can score points a lot of the time, even when cars potentially aren't that great. That's Hulkenberg in a nutshell. Is he a champion in the making? No, I don't think so. And that's the reason why he's never had a podium. Of course, there has been bad luck involved in that as well, but he has also thrown away opportunities where podiums were on the cards. But Hulk has been amazing this season. He's just so level-headed. Like, he just knows that there's no expectation in that car, and he's delivered a P5 in Spain and then a P8 here in a car that, don't get me wrong, has improved. And I would even almost say that I don't think it sucks as much as at least it did. Like, it is a midfield car now.
They're able to fight with the midfielders now.
Yeah, Bortoletto's not
midfield.
Half a minute off the back of the pack and Hulk's up there in P8. But Nico's done phenomenally well.
He certainly has. Yeah, he's got 20 points on the board now, which is 20 more than I thought he'd get. Because yeah, it's amazing to see, and I guess Hulkenberg is just praying that Audi deliver a decent car.
I mean, that would be great. If Hulk can just get one podium, that would be just lovely.
It would, wouldn't it?
I think the whole of Formula One would.
Imagine
would be
if he got it
name.
in the Sauber though, when everyone was so convinced that they're the worst team on the grid. He's got no chance. It's all about Audi, and then he gets one.
I think even
probably the worst car of his career.
The stewards would turn a blind eye if he just cut the last chicane and took a podium at one of the races.
Well,
he's running in P5, P4, just corner cut. Just do something crazy.
To be fair, so we've got George Russell under investigation. We've got Kimi Antonelli, Piastri, Leclerc under investigation. If they all get penalised, Hulkenberg will be fourth. Wow, can you imagine?
Oh, so close. I mean, that would be horrible if he did somehow get an inherited P3. We'd have to go back. Everybody, the fans, the teams would have to go back to the track to do another podium ceremony.
Hulkenberg podium party, and then they literally sell tickets to an event where he gets on the podium and spray champagne, and all his fans can be there to cheer him. Yeah, it would.
For sure. Okay, we now head to biggest winner, driver or team. My biggest winner, I think it has to be Mercedes as a team, is what I'm going to go with. Not purely because, obviously, Kimi Antonelli got his first podium, George won, but just the fact of it was kind of unexpected coming into this weekend, the level of which they were going to perform. But then also today, when we were speaking about, it's mid-40-degree track temperatures, I think we were all starting to think, okay, they might actually struggle a little bit here. But they didn't, so Merc for me.
It's got to be Merc, yeah. The fact that they got both drivers on the podium for now, but no, I think they will stay there. They were very much the big winners of the day, as well as Nico Hulkenberg. But Hulkenberg scoring points now is just predictable and boring.
It's just normal. Yeah, it's just another day in the office for Hulkenberg. Biggest loser.
Lando Norris. Is there anyone else? Surely.
Yeah, it's a huge loss for Lando. I'd say Alex Albon's weekend was pretty
shocking,
pretty diabolical.
To think that when we got into practice and it was like, Williams podium, anyone? And they're looking so good, and then no points for Albon.
They've had a couple of pretty poor weekends in Spain, and then also here as well. Yeah, but I think Lando Norris is it has to be. It's the big talking point, sadly. Right, let's reflect on our predictions that we made on Wednesday and see how
no.
we did. I have a good feeling about this one that some advantages will be towards myself. It's currently 24-17 to Tommy. So Tommy having a stinker is absolutely something I need. A good surprise. I went for Kimi Antonelli. Let me just pull out my smug face.
I'd love
That's
to be
1
like,
point
well,
for me.
technically he was behind us.
Technically, he lost to his teammate.
First podium, yeah. Brilliant from Kimi. I went for Lewis Hamilton, who
And he
had a
yeeted a
shocker.
groundhog.
Yes, he did. Had a shocking race due to damage, poor strategy. Qualified Charles Leclerc, one of the best qualifiers ever.
Don't you dare Hadjar with his flipping banana peel dirty air. But yeah, Hamilton, yeeting a groundhog, losing 20 points of downforce, which I think Martin Brundle said in commentary was about half a second a lap, and then it's just in no man's land. So just an unlucky race for Hamilton, but also, as you say, Ferrari's strategy was questionable, to say the least, with him putting him out in a lot of traffic. A big flop. I went for Isaac Hadjar. Now, I don't even know where he finished.
It's because he finished 16th. That's a flop.
I didn't even realise I scored a point for that one.
Oh my God, I didn't either.
Oh my God, can we get
no.
some W's in the chat? Wait, we're not live streaming. Goodness.
Oh,
okay.
I can't believe that. Oh no.
And Sonoda,
no.
he didn't have a stinker, did he?
No, he didn't. He finished 12th, which was better than he did last time. How is a Red Bull in 12th not a stinker?
Not a big flop.
Yeah, crazy.
Wowee. Okay, now we go to something that I was obviously going to get something wrong, and of course, it has to be scientifically studied because I backed Lando Norris for pole position.
And he messed up, didn't he? And I went for Oscar Piastri, and he also did not get pole position. And I was so close to going for George Russell, and I was like, no, I'm gonna extend my lead even further.
To extend your
yeah.
lead when it's 7 points clear. This is what happens.
Yeah,
this is karma.
Really,
right, third position. I went for Oscar Piastri in the race, and that did not happen.
I went for Lando Norris. Didn't happen.
Second place, I went for Max Verstappen, which did happen.
Did happen
Give me
as of
another
now.
point.
And I went
as
for
of now.
I went for George Russell in P2. No.
No. And in first place, I went for Lando Norris.
Nope. And I went for Oscar Piastri. No.
Oh, that's so annoying.
Imagine I think we were like roasting the family top threes for like, why aren't you going for McLaren? No McLaren on the podium. Crazy.
Yeah, if that could have been a crazy prediction. That would have been that was never going to
like
happen.
a 3-pointer.
Okay, so one crazy prediction. I went for there will be an incident that questions whether Max will be banned or not. So
now this needs to go to the stewards.
This needs to go to the stewards, but I feel like I have a case here because there was a literal incident where George did the brakey thing, and it was naughty, don't get me wrong, but did we or did we not question Max going past him and going, that could be a penalty point? That's my case, Your Honour. That's my case.
We'll open it up to the YouTube comments, I think.
Okay, chat, you've got to help me out here, please. Come on. Top comment that saying I deserve a point,
okay,
please.
Yeah. We'll see. And
help
I went
me
for
out. Oh my God.
Kimi Antonelli on the podium. That's my crazy prediction. Yep.
I forgot you did that.
I did, yeah.
Okay, you're the GOAT all of a sudden again.
I'm happy
fair
about
enough.
that one.
Now we go to our Patreon prediction, where if you're part of our P1 Patreon, you can submit a prediction every single race weekend and be part of this wonderful podcast and help us score points. Mine was from Edith, is my middle name.
Not
we
Eddie.
finally get the McLaren fight. Oh my God, I've got my chef apron on right now. We're closing the gap.
That is crazy. You've got good surprise, big flop, a point from your top three, maybe a point from crazy prediction, and the Patreon prediction. Oh my word.
So the only things I got wrong were to do with McLaren. Norris's position, Piastri's position, and pole position, Lando. Are you kidding me?
Wow. And I went for Nicole's, which was Q3 for a Sauber, which was wrong. They got points. They were in the points, but did not get into
better.
Q3. Shocking. So that is given you 1, 2, 3, 4 points, maybe 5.
Wow. Huge.
So So we'll
21, maybe 22.
25, 21, maybe
so it's
even
4,
22.
maybe
so
3 points. Chat, help
So
me,
big-
Michael Massey. Get
big
involved,
championship.
please. I know I keep saying chat, but that's the easiest way to say. But if you don't watch our watch-alongs and you're like, why the hell are you calling us that? Right, family top 3. It's currently 6-3 to the Bellinghams. Boo, no one cares. Boo. So my girlfriend, Ellie, went for 3rd place, Max Verstappen. New.
My mother went for Charles Leclerc in P3.
New. In 2nd place, Ellie went for Piastri.
My mum went for Oscar Piastri as well.
And then in 1st place, Ellie went for Lando Norris. So that's a grand whopping 0 points for the Gallaghers.
And my mum went for Max Verstappen, which is a no.
Which
Actually, can we
could
just...
come in.
It could. Well, yeah, maybe. Maybe that could all change. Who knows?
So that now I'm in 2 minds. In one mind, I'm like, Max Verstappen wins the race in Canada, closes the gap to the McLarens, we get a good championship. My other mind, I really want to win the family predictions.
Speaking of just predictions in general, so you mentioned about can it be studied? You went for Lando Norris pole position and he messed up his qualifying lap. And then you and Ellie both predicted him. You gave him the double jinx and then he smashed into his teammate and got a DNF. That just I think there'll be a lot of Lando fans watching this podcast just saying, just don't even say his name through the whole next podcast, please.
Look, I am sorry. This is an actual apology for all Lando Norris fans that genuinely believe that it's my fault.
Crazy though.
Someone needs to go back through.
We need to go back through, don't we, at some point and look and actually
whether
see.
An amazing listener wants to do that and collate a little spreadsheet for us. Our DMs are open. That would be lovely. If not, we'll get Tommy to go through all the archives. But if you do have that somehow noted down, then please do send it over to us because we would love to see just how bad this curse or so-called curse is. But I feel like it is actually a curse and I'm really, really sorry. And that is that. We are done here for the main race review. Remember, if you are a P1 patron, stick around because we've got some extra chat coming for you. Patreon.com/MattP1Tommy if you haven't joined the wonderful P1 Patreon Club. Tommy, what are your final thoughts, please, sir?
My final thoughts are I will just give a shout out to Mr. Robert Kubica who won Le Mans today because if anyone was a Formula One fan maybe in recent years, may have just watched him in the Williams and thought, oh, he was all right. If you watched Formula One in the late 2010s, he was a very, very special driver indeed. And I think we were robbed of watching, how good his career could have been after his kind of really horrific rally accident. So for him to win Le Mans, I think was a really, really special moment and a very, very cool thing to see.
Yep, I completely echo your thoughts, Tommy. What an amazing achievement for Kubica, who was such an amazing talent. I don't think, if you didn't watch Formula One back then, he was destined for Ferrari.
He literally nearly won the
destined for
championships in a Sauber.
Yeah, and then Sauber were like, nah, don't actually fancy winning this one. Let's win next year instead.
Yeah, and then we're
Crazy
terrible.
scenes. Yeah, and then they were rubbish. But yeah, big shout out to both Ferrari, of course, and Robert Kubica for winning Le Mans. Awesome stuff. Right, that is it. We will see you in a couple of weeks' time for the next race weekend, which is in Austria. My birthday weekend, Tommy. I look forward to the cake arriving. With like your face on it. Like, yeah. That's not the end of the P1 podcast. That's not the main thing. That's a Patreon thing. Anyway, bye!
Bye.